So, living at or above your means isn't only about flashy purchases or expensive items. Sometimes it's the subtle shifts in your lifestyle that can lead to financial strain. And it can happen so fast, so you may not even realize that it's happening until it's too late. So in today's video, I'm not going to talk about the different things that you can do to avoid living above your means. I already have a few videos on that topic, which I will link to below. Rather, we're going to look at those sneaky signs that you might overlook. So the first sign that you might be living at or above your needs is that you're struggling after an upgrade. Upgrading your lifestyle can include many things, like buying a bigger house, a fancier car, or even enjoying more conveniences. And while these aren't bad in themselves, it is crucial to consider the impact they have on your financial well-being. Because even if an upgrade enhances your life in some way, it shouldn't be at the expense of your financial peace of mind. So in other words, if you find that you're now worrying about money or you're living paycheck to paycheck after an upgrade, that could be a sign that you've taken things a little too far and you've stretched your budget too thin. Because before the upgrade, maybe everything was fine. You were comfortable, you were paying your bills, and you didn't have any real financial worries. However, that shift to something larger or maybe nicer now has you on a financial edge. So the bottom line is that even if you are able to pull off these new monthly expenses, having a constant worry about money in the back of your mind or worrying about money to a new degree, and this wasn't the case before, is often an indicator that you've gone from being comfortable to living at or above your means. You might also be living at or above your means if you don't know how much your life costs. One subtle and sneaky way that many people end up living above their means is not tracking their expenses and spending. It is really easy to overspend when you don't have a clear picture of where your money goes, and one area where you might lack awareness includes the grocery store and food. For example, if you don't meal plan or shop with a list, you might not realize how much you're actually spending on food each month. It's also a lot easier to make those little impulse purchases when you don't have a list, and these items can add up quickly. Likewise, if you're not keeping a close eye on your fuel expense, you might be surprised at how much you spend on transportation. And dining out can also quickly spiral out of control if you don't set some personal limitations. Now, in your mind, you might only be spending $100 a month on miscellaneous purchases or maybe $150 a month eating out, but in reality, it might be double or triple that. And if you really think about it, if you don't have a clue as to how much you're spending, or if you don't have any type of plan, how do you know that you're not overspending? In this type of scenario, it can become nearly impossible to gauge whether you're staying within a reasonable spending limit. And some people might say, well, my bills are paid, so it's not that big of a deal. But that's not really entirely true. And my response to that would be, but are you saving? Do you have a real emergency fund? Do you have a plan to chip away at your credit card debt? Being financially responsible isn't only about paying the bills that are in front of you, it's also about preparing and planning for the future. And along with that, you might also be living at or above your means if you're saving less than 5% of your income and you don't have a real emergency fund. And this isn't because you have an income problem. So I just want to put that out there and be very clear. So in other words, you have money for everything else. So if someone calls you and they're like, let's go out to eat, let's go to the movies, let's go shopping, let's go on this trip, you are out the door, everything is booked before you even put down the phone. Yet when it comes to planning and saving for the future, there's zero safety net. Now, don't misunderstand me. You should absolutely have fun and enjoy new experiences. But at the same time, you still have to prioritize the important stuff, and saving money is one of these. And I've said this before, just because you have money to do something doesn't necessarily mean that you can afford it. And for anyone who doesn't know, to afford means being able to enjoy something without negative consequences. So in other words, it means being able to enjoy life without compromising your financial well-being. If you can take 4 and 5 vacations or mini getaways a year and eat out 3 or 4 times a week, there's really no reason why you shouldn't have at least a 3-month safety net. And finally, another sign that you're living at or above your means is that you're using a credit card for non-essentials and you're carrying those balances from month to month. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with using a credit card, and many people, including myself, use credit for the majority of their everyday purchases. You can use your credit card to build your credit history, and you can get something back in return if you have a rewards program. But the key here is really only charging what you can afford and not carrying that balance from month to month. And one of the most responsible ways to use a credit card is to only use it for items that you would normally buy anyway, and then pay off your balance in full every single month. For example, you might use yours for everyday expenses such as food, gas, bills, and anything else that's already been included in your budget. However, if you're using your card to pay for things like eating out, non essential clothing, electronics, and even travel, and you're carrying these balances, meaning you can't afford to pay them off or you're waiting to pay them off with future money, this is a red flag, and there's a 99.9% chance that you're living at or above your means.